Have you ever noticed that some people can survive rejection, distance, and heartbreak, yet completely lose their composure when somebody truly understands them? It's strange when you think about it. Most people assume pain comes from being abandoned. But for certain individuals, the deeper discomfort comes from being seen. Not the version they show the world, not the personality they've carefully built over the years. The real person underneath. And that's why the connection between a super empath and an avoidant personality can become so intense. From the outside, nothing unusual seems to be happening. There are no dramatic arguments, no obvious confrontations, no visible battles for power. Yet beneath the surface, something begins shifting. One person naturally moves toward emotional truth. The other has spent years learning how to stay one step away from it. Neither side plans this dynamic. Neither side fully understands it at first. Yet the impact becomes impossible to ignore. Most avoidant individuals didn't wake up one morning and decide to become distant. Distance usually starts as protection, a disappointment that wasn't processed, a promise that was broken, a moment when vulnerability felt unsafe, a moment when trust became associated with pain. Small experiences slowly shape larger habits. Eventually, those habits become beliefs. Then those beliefs become identity. Years later, they may appear completely independent. They may seem unaffected. They may even convince themselves that they genuinely don't need much from anyone. But human beings are not machines. No matter how strong someone appears, the desire for connection rarely disappears. It simply goes underground. Then one day they encounter somebody who notices things other people ignore. Somebody who pays attention to patterns instead of performances. Somebody who listens beyond words. Somebody who senses what remains unspoken. And without trying, that person begins creating pressure. Not external pressure, internal pressure. The first sign a super empath silently destroys an avoidant's ego is that they refuse to be distracted by appearances. Most people react to confidence. Most people accept whatever version of reality is presented to them. The empath responds differently. They notice hesitation hidden inside certainty. They notice loneliness hidden inside independence. They notice emotional exhaustion hidden behind self-control. Tiny details, tiny contradictions, tiny signals, nothing dramatic. Yet those small observations eventually create a powerful effect. The avoidant realizes their usual defenses are no longer working the way they normally work. For years, certain habits kept deeper emotions hidden. Now somebody is responding to those emotions without being invited to. That creates discomfort, because image creates distance, understanding removes it. The second sign appears when the empath refuses to chase. This is where many expectations begin collapsing. Distance usually produces predictable reactions. Someone becomes unavailable. The other person moves closer. Someone withdraws emotionally. The other person increases effort. The cycle repeats itself so often that it starts feeling normal. Then suddenly the avoidant encounters somebody who doesn't play that role. Somebody who values connection without becoming dependent on it. Somebody who can appreciate closeness without making it the center of their world. Somebody who refuses to sacrifice self-respect for attention. At first, this feels refreshing. Then it becomes confusing. Then it becomes unsettling. Because familiar patterns are disappearing. No emotional pursuit, no desperation, no attempts to force certainty. And when old patterns disappear, old assumptions start breaking apart. The avoidant begins questioning things they never questioned before. Why isn't this person reacting the way everyone else reacts? Why doesn't distance create the same outcome anymore? Why does emotional withdrawal suddenly feel ineffective? Those questions quietly chip away at the ego because they challenge beliefs that once felt unquestionable. The third sign goes even deeper. The empath unintentionally exposes contradictions. Human beings are full of contradictions. Yet avoidant individuals often work hard to avoid acknowledging them. They may claim relationships aren't important while thinking about somebody every day. They may insist they don't need emotional closeness while secretly craving it. They may describe themselves as detached while carrying unresolved feelings for years. The empath notices these inconsistencies without making them the center of attention. They simply respond to reality instead of the story surrounding it. And that's where tension begins building, because contradictions force reflection. Reflection creates awareness. Awareness creates discomfort. Suddenly, the avoidant starts seeing things that were previously hidden behind explanations and excuses. The gap between identity and reality becomes harder to ignore, and that gap can feel incredibly unsettling. The fourth sign appears when the empath refuses to shrink themselves. Many sensitive people spend years believing that understanding others means tolerating everything. They ignore warning signs. They silence their needs. They accept confusion. They overextend themselves emotionally. Eventually, life teaches a different lesson. Understanding someone does not require abandoning yourself. Compassion does not require self-neglect. Patience does not require endless sacrifice. Once this lesson is learned, everything changes. Standards become healthier. Boundaries become clearer. Communication becomes more direct. The empath stops making themselves smaller in order to maintain a connection. This creates a powerful contrast. Suddenly, the avoidant is interacting with somebody who values honesty, reciprocity, and consistency. Somebody who cannot be controlled through uncertainty. Somebody who recognizes effort instead of promises. Somebody who pays attention to actions instead of intentions. That level of self-awareness can feel surprisingly intimidating because it highlights areas where growth may still be needed. The fifth sign leaves the deepest impact of all. The empath continues moving forward regardless of what happens. Many people unknowingly build their identity around a relationship. Their confidence rises and falls with another person's behavior. Their mood depends on validation. Their sense of worth depends on attention. The empath eventually outgrows this pattern. They build a meaningful life outside the connection. They continue growing, continue learning, continue evolving, continue pursuing purpose. This changes the entire dynamic. Emotional withdrawal no longer stops progress. Silence no longer controls direction. Distance no longer determines self-worth. The avoidant suddenly finds themselves facing a person who genuinely cared yet never lost themselves. A person who offered connection without surrendering identity. A person who remained emotionally present while still remaining emotionally free. That realization can be difficult to process because it reveals a different way of living. A way where connection and independence coexist. A way where vulnerability and strength coexist. A way where emotional honesty does not require weakness. This is the deeper truth hidden beneath the entire dynamic. A super empath does not destroy an avoidant's ego through criticism. They do it through contrast, through example, through authenticity. Their presence quietly challenges assumptions that have existed for years. Their behavior introduces possibilities that once seemed impossible. Every genuine interaction becomes evidence that another way of living exists, a way that doesn't depend on constant escape routes, a way that doesn't require pretending not to care, a way that doesn't require emotional distance to feel safe. Once somebody sees that possibility clearly, forgetting it becomes difficult, even if they continue resisting it, even if they continue running from it. The awareness remains, the questions remain, the reflection remains. And that is why these connections often leave such a lasting impact. Not because they are perfect, not because they are destined, not because they always work out, because they reveal something important. They reveal how much energy a person has spent protecting themselves from experiences they secretly wanted all along. And for the empath, there is an equally important lesson hidden inside this experience. Not everyone who is understood is ready to change. Not everyone who receives patience knows how to accept it. Not everyone who encounters honesty feels comfortable with it. Another person's readiness is not your responsibility. Another person's growth is not your responsibility. Another person's choices are not your responsibility. Your responsibility is protecting your peace, honoring your values, maintaining your authenticity, and continuing your own journey. The people capable of genuine connection will recognize your depth. The people committed to avoidance may feel challenged by it. Either way, the outcome provides clarity. Because healthy relationships are never built through chasing, confusion, or emotional games. They are built through honesty, effort, consistency, and mutual willingness. And perhaps that is the most unsettling thing a super empath brings into an avoidant person's life. Not pressure, not control, not demands, a living example. An example that quietly proves there is another way to exist. Some people embrace that example. Some people run from it. But once they have seen it, they can never completely forget it. And sometimes that memory becomes the beginning of a transformation they never expected.